I'm Sarah, a 30-year-old IT specialist, and I've been pretty much buried in my tech world at a large company. Life was about as predictable as it gets until a call from an old friend shook things up. It was about our high school reunion. I got there a bit late, thanks to a last-minute bug I had to squash at work, but the place was already buzzing with laughter and loud conversations. I recognized faces, now a little rounder or leaner, hairlines receding, and fashion senses, well, let's just say some were better left in the past. Sarah, over here. Lisa, ever the loudmouth even back in school, waved from across the room. She hadn't changed a bit, still as flashy and flamboyant as ever. I made my way over, dodging a couple of overly enthusiastic greeters, and finally hugged her. Lisa, you look, well, exactly like I remember. You still running the grapevine? You know it, she winked. But hey, have you seen Mike yet? Mike? I scanned the room and spotted him standing awkwardly by the snack table, not really talking to anyone. What's with him? He looks miserable. Lisa leaned in, lowering her voice, despite the loud music. Broke up with Jenna, again. But for real this time, it seems. You remember Jenna, right? Drama queen extraordinaire. Oh, right, I nodded, remembering the explosive relationship those two had. That rough, huh? Worse than a soap opera. She made a scene at his office last month. I heard she threw his phone out the window. We grabbed our drinks and mingled around, catching up with more people, laughing about old times, and listening to tales of who's doing what these days. As the night went on, I kept glancing over at Mike. He was mostly by himself, looking out of place among the laughing groups. Feeling a tug of compassion, I excused myself from a boring conversation about insurance premiums and walked over to him. Hey, Mike. Long time, huh? He looked up, a bit startled. Sarah? Oh, hey, yeah, it's been a while. You look good. You know, if you ever need to talk or just hang out, I'm around. We used to be good at that, remember? Solving the world's problems one rant at a time. He managed a small smile. Yeah, I remember. Thanks, Sarah. After the reunion, life sort of just plodded along for a week or so. I was back at my desk, buried under code and upcoming project deadlines. Honestly, I hadn't thought much about Mike or the reunion until my phone buzzed one evening while I was sprawled on the couch binge-watching some show. Hey Sarah, it's Mike. Got a minute? His voice sounded a bit hesitant. Sure, Mike. What's up? I muted the TV, my interest peaked. I was just thinking about the other night at the reunion. We didn't really get much of a chance to catch up. How about we meet for coffee this weekend? Cafe Cornerstone. The rest of the week crawled by, but finally, Saturday came. I found Cafe Cornerstone nestled between a bookstore and a bakery. Its quaint setup with cozy nooks seemed ideal for long conversations. Mike was already there, seated at a back table with 2 coffees and a slightly anxious smile. Hey, you made it, he stood up as I approached, pulling out a chair for me. Hope you like caramel macchiato. Thanks, and yeah, I love it. I settled into the chair, smiling at the gesture. This is a nice spot, Mike. Feels hidden away from the world. We spent the next couple of hours just talking about random things, movies we liked, books we'd read, and some reminiscing about high school antics. It was easy, comfortable. Mike had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. As we were leaving the cafe, Mike turned to me. Hey, Sarah, I had a really good time today. Would you maybe want to do this again next weekend? There's a little indie cinema nearby that's showing some classic films. Thought it might be fun. That second date led to a third and a fourth. Each time we met, it was like we picked up right where we left off. The more I got to know Mike, the more I realized how much I enjoyed his company. Only a year after Mike and I started dating, he popped the question. It wasn't anything fancy, no skywriting or flash mobs. We were just sitting on the couch, watching a movie when he turned to me during a commercial break, a serious look on his face. Sarah, I've been thinking. We're pretty good together, aren't we? I laughed. Pretty good? I'd say better than good. He smiled, that easy smile that always made my heart skip. How about we make it official then? Marry me? Just like that. No dramatic kneeling, just him, me, and a very comfortable sofa. Yes, I said without a moment's hesitation. Yes, I'll marry you. The wedding planning kicked off at full speed. We both wanted something small, nothing too over the top. Mike's parents were thrilled. They loved me, and honestly, I was pretty fond of them too. His mom, Martha, especially took to the planning like it was the royal wedding. One afternoon, we were at their place, flipping through catering menus and flower arrangements. Martha kept pushing for more lavish options. Dear, are you sure you don't want the white doves? They make for such splendid photos. Martha, I think we'll pass on the doves. Maybe just some nice centerpieces? I suggested, trying to keep things simple. Mike's dad, Harold, leaned over and whispered to me, don't let her bully you into anything too fancy. It's your day, Sarah. I nodded, grateful for the backup. The warnings came from Lisa, of all people. We were out for drinks one night, a little break from all the wedding madness. She still had that knack for stirring up trouble, or at least trying to sniff it out. So, Sarah, everything's going smooth with Mike, huh? He's really turned over a new leaf? I sipped my drink, a bit wary of where she was heading. Yeah, he's great. Why? No reason. Just, his track record wasn't exactly stellar. You really think he's changed? I frowned. Lisa, he's not his past. People change. Sure, they do. But sometimes they change back. Just saying, keep your eyes open, girl. The wedding day arrived faster than I could have imagined. It was a perfect sunny day, not too hot, not too cold. The venue was a small garden, lush green with flowers everywhere, just as I had wanted. Simple, beautiful, not overrun with doves or anything too extravagant. The ceremony was a blur of vows, smiles, and a few tears, happy ones. At the reception, Mike's parents both hugged me, almost crushing me between them. Welcome to the family, dear, Martha whispered, her eyes moist. We're so glad it's you. Harold gave me a firm nod. Good to have you officially on board, Sarah. We left the reception under a shower of rice, laughing as we dodged the playful throws from our friends and family. As we drove off to start our new life together, I felt hopeful. Life as a newlywed started off like a dream. Mike and I were in that honeymoon phase where everything seemed perfect, where dinners were candlelit every night, and weekends were long, lazy stretches of shared smiles and slow dances in our living room. But as months rolled on, I started to notice small changes, the kind of stuff that nibbles at the edge of your happiness without fully announcing itself. One night, I was clearing up after dinner, and Mike was on his laptop, which had gradually become a common scene. Hey, Mike, wanna watch that new action movie tonight? Heard it's good. He didn't look up. Nah, I've got tons to do. Maybe another time. It wasn't just the brushed-off movie plans. It was him coming home later and later, his side of the bed cold when I'd try to snuggle up, him being there but not really being there. One evening, after he had missed another dinner, I decided to confront him when he walked in at nearly midnight. Mike, we need to talk. Is everything okay at work? You've been coming home so late. He sighed, tossing his keys on the table with more force than necessary. It's just work, Sarah. We're slammed. You know how it is. I get that, but it feels like you're always tired, always busy. I miss spending time with you. Don't start, alright? I'm not in the mood for this tonight. He brushed past me, heading to our bedroom. That stung. I followed him, not ready to let it go. Not in the mood? When are you ever in the mood to talk these days, Mike? He paused, the anger in his eyes softening a bit. Just going through a rough patch. It'll get better. I wanted to believe him, so I did. We went to bed that night, with unresolved tensions hanging between us like thick smoke. Things didn't get better, though. The cycle continued. Mike would be attentive and sweet for a few days, and then distant for weeks. It wore on me, the constant up and down. One afternoon, I tried a different tactic. I booked us a table at our favorite cafe, thinking a change of scenery might help. "Mike, let's go out today. Just us, like old times." He hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, sure." At the cafe, I tried to lighten the mood. "Remember when we first came here? You spilled coffee all over yourself trying to impress me with your latte art skills." He cracked a smile, finally looking at me. "Yeah, that was a disaster. Gave up on being a barista after that." We laughed, and for a moment, it felt like we'd turned a corner. But halfway through dessert, his phone buzzed, and whatever wall had come down went right back up. He checked the message and stood abruptly. "I've got to go back to work. Something's come up." "Right now? It's Saturday, Mike." "I don't control the timing, Sarah. I'm sorry, I have to handle this." There was a hardness in his voice that didn't sit well with me. I watched him leave, the half-eaten dessert a silent witness to another failed attempt. I sat there a long while, thinking about Lisa's warning, about how people change back sometimes. The past few months had been a roller coaster. One minute, Mike was the sweet guy, attentive and full of surprises. Next thing I knew, he was cold, buried in work, and coming home later each night. That evening was no different, or so I thought until he walked through the door with a scratch clawing down his face. "What happened to your face?" I asked, my voice sharp, cutting through the silence of our living room. Mike flinched, a little startled by my directness. "It's nothing. Had a bit of a mishap on the road. Almost collided with a car." I stared at him, trying to piece together the scene. "And that got you scratched?" He sighed, shifting uncomfortably. "Yeah, the other driver, a woman, she freaked out. We argued, and she scratched me." I crossed my arms, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Really? That sounds kinda wild, Mike." He avoided my eyes, focusing instead on a loose thread on his sleeve. "I swear, that's what happened." Something about his tone didn't sit right with me. It wasn't just the scratch or the implausible story, it was the way he was acting, edgy, defensive. We'd had our issues lately, sure. He'd even thrown out that I was too calm, too boring. That had hurt, more than I'd let on, leading to more arguments than I could count. But this was different. "You expect me to believe that? After the way things have been between us?" I pressed, needing more than just his awkward excuses. "Sarah, please, I don't want to fight." He finally met my gaze, his face a mix of frustration and pleading. I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "Neither do I, Mike. But you come home looking like you've been in a bar fight, and you tell me it was some random woman on the road?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of pure frustration. "Yes, that's exactly what happened." "Why is that so hard to believe?" "Because it's you, Mike. Because one day you're sweet and caring, and the next, you're this distant guy who stays late at work and comes home with scratches." He stepped forward, his expression softening. "I know it's been rough, I know I've been off. But I'm telling you the truth. Let's not go down this road." I wanted to believe him, really, I did. Part of me wanted to wrap my arms around him, to make everything okay with a hug like I used to. But another part, a growing part, couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. "Mike, I want to believe you. I do. But something's got to give. We can't keep going like this." He nodded slowly. "I know. I'll try harder. We'll get past this, I promise." I wanted to end the night there, to say it was all okay and fall into bed together like we used to. But I couldn't. Instead, I just nodded, the promise hanging in the air, fragile and thin. He looked relieved, maybe even a little hopeful. "Thank you, Sarah. I love you, you know that, right?" "I know," I replied, the words automatic. "I love you too." But as he walked away to clean up his face, and I turned back to the dishes, the doubt remained, gnawing at me. Love wasn't supposed to be this hard, was it? Not if it was real, not if it was right. A week before our wedding anniversary, which I had planned to celebrate with a romantic candlelit dinner, disaster struck. I was crossing the road near my workplace when suddenly, a car came out of nowhere. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed, pain throbbing through my ankle and my head spinning. The doctors did a bunch of tests, a CT scan, and X-rays, and concluded I had a dislocated ankle along with a concussion. They decided to keep me in the hospital for a week to monitor my condition. Once I was somewhat alert, I called Mike. His phone rang a few times before he picked up. "Hey, what's up?" he answered, his voice sounding rushed. "Mike, I'm in the hospital," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the swirling pain and confusion. What happened?" He sounded concerned, finally. "I got hit by a car. It's bad, but not too bad. I'm okay, sort of. I have a concussion and a dislocated ankle. They're keeping me here for a week." There was a pause on the line, then, "Oh, wow, Sarah, look, I can't talk right now. I'm at the airport." "Airport? Why?" "I had to leave for a business trip, urgently. I won't be back for 2 weeks." His words felt like another blow, this time to my heart. "What? Mike, our anniversary is in a few days. Why didn't you tell me about this trip?" It came up last minute. "Sorry, I really can't talk now. You're distracting me, Sarah." Then he just hung up. I was left holding the phone, stunned and alone. Tears welled up in my eyes, not just from the pain in my body, but from the sharp ache in my chest. I called my mother-in-law, and she came to the hospital with some clothes and hygiene products. "I don't understand, why didn't Mike tell me he was going away?" I asked her as she helped me settle in. She looked troubled, her hands fussing more with the blanket than necessary. "I don't know, dear. He didn't tell us much either. But don't worry, everything will be fine." After she left, I lay there, staring at the sterile hospital ceiling, the beeps of machines around me. I couldn't just lie there and do nothing. I needed answers. I picked up my phone again and called Mike's office. His boss, Greg, who had always been friendly with me, answered the phone. "Hey, Sarah, how are you doing?" "Not great, Greg. I'm in the hospital. Listen, I need to ask you something. What business trip is Mike on?" He said it was urgent. There was a pause, then, "Business trip? Sarah, Mike isn't on a business trip. He took a personal leave for 2 weeks. Said he needed some time off, no details given." I hung up, the cold realization settling in. Mike lied. He wasn't on a business trip. He had left on purpose, right before our anniversary, and right when I ended up in the hospital. I needed to talk to someone who might know more, so I called Lisa, my classmate who knew everything about everyone. "Hey, Lisa, it's Sarah. Listen, have you heard anything about Mike recently?" There was a brief pause. "You sure you want to know?" "Just spill it," I pressed, bracing myself. "Okay, well, he's been seen around with Jenna again. You know, the ex. And not just friendly meetups, if you catch my drift." Everything started to make sense, the mood swings, his sudden disinterest, and the scratches. It wasn't just random stress, it was Jenna's drama pulling him back in. I was still processing this when my phone rang. It was Mike. "Sarah, babe, I need your help." "Help?" My voice was icy. "What kind of trouble are you in now, Mike?" We're in Mexico, Jenna and I. We got into a fight, and it got out of hand. We're detained by the police." I couldn't help but laugh, bitter and sharp. "You're in jail? You skipped our anniversary, left me alone while I'm in a hospital, to go to Mexico with her? And now you want my help?" "Sarah, please, this is serious. We need money for a lawyer, and there's a huge fine." The audacity of his request after everything was astounding. "No, Mike. You made your bed. Now lie in it," I said, cutting him off mid-plea. I called his parents next, needing them to understand the gravity of their son's choices. "Mom, it's Sarah. I need to tell you about Mike." His mom, always kind and understanding, listened as I explained the situation. By the end, her voice was heavy with disappointment. "I can't believe he would do this. His father and we won't help him this time. He needs to learn." After hanging up, I lay back on my pillow, staring at the sterile white ceiling, feeling the finality of everything wash over me. Mike and I were done. The love I had for him, the life I thought we were building, it was all based on illusions, fragile and fleeting as morning mist. The next few days in the hospital gave me time to think about what I wanted next. Without the constant drama and heartache, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't realized was missing. It was over with Mike, and that was okay. It had to be. A week after I got out of the hospital, I was adjusting to the quiet of my own home when Mike unexpectedly showed up at the door. He looked thin and worn out, a far cry from the man who had flown to Mexico, and his face twisted with anger the moment he saw me. "You left me to rot in that jail," he burst out as soon as I opened the door. "How could you do that to me?" I couldn't help but laugh, not because it was funny, but because of the absurdity of it all. "Me? Leave you? Mike, you dug that hole all by yourself. And just so you know, I'm filing for divorce. And yes, I will be seeking compensation for your betrayal." His face went pale, the anger shifting to panic. "You can't do that, Sarah. We can sort this out." "Sort this out? There's nothing left to sort, Mike. You've done enough." I was calm, more composed than I thought possible given the circumstances. I had gotten in touch with a lawyer the day I left the hospital. By then, she had already reached out to the Mexican authorities. They were surprisingly cooperative, providing all the necessary evidence of Mike's infidelity, including a signed statement from both him and Jenna about their relationship. Seeing Mike's desperation, I felt a mixture of pity and resolve. "You should have thought about sorting things out before you decided to cheat and lie, Mike. It's over." "But, Sarah, No buts. It's done. My lawyer has everything. The police, the testimonies, the photos, all of it." Mike slumped against the doorframe, defeated. "What about us? Our marriage? It ended the moment you decided to betray it. There's no us anymore, Mike. Only me and what I decide to do next. And right now, I decide to move on." With that, I closed the door on him, literally and metaphorically. Over the next few weeks, the divorce proceedings moved quickly, thanks to the overwhelming evidence. I received a substantial settlement, not as a victory but as a compensation for the betrayal and the upheaval it caused in my life. I moved out of our shared home, finding a new place where I could start fresh. It was smaller, but it was mine, filled only with things and memories I chose. Lisa, ever the source of local news, kept me updated on Mike's situation. He was still with Jenna, and their relationship was as tumultuous as ever. "They're always fighting, always making a scene. Police have been called a few times already," she told me one afternoon over coffee. "Let them have each other," I said, sipping my latte. "I'm better off. I'm back at work, diving into projects. I'm building my career, Lisa. On my terms." As for Mike, his life continued to spiral. His parents, once so warm and welcoming, had distanced themselves, disapproving of his choices and the chaos that followed him. His work suffered too, and eventually, he was let go due to his erratic behavior and poor performance. Sitting in my new living room, surrounded by boxes yet to be unpacked, I felt a sense of peace. The past months had been a whirlwind, a time of pain and revelation, but also of growth and newfound freedom. I was starting over, but this time with more wisdom, more resilience. I was free from the deceit, free from the drama. It was just me, my work, and a future that looked brighter by the day. As I set up my new space, every picture I hung and every book I shelved was a testament to my new beginning, to my ability to rebuild and flourish.